Hey guys, Music Ninja Matt here. I'm here with Zixay. It's essentially a Spider-Man Homecoming Wonder Woman review. The reason it's in one video is because these are both the summer blockbusters from DC and Marvel. Justice League and Thor both come out in November, and Guardians came out, April for us, which is spring.
Yeah.
And there's already a review for that on this channel. I'll post the link in the description down below. Okay, for each film, we're going to just basically do our pros, cons, and what can we expect from the sequel based on the movie. I don't think I've watched any... No, I did. I watched like a trailer for this film, but I kind of avoided everything.
All the spoilers and everything.
We're just, yeah.
Yeah.
We took a while to go see this.
We did.
We saw like the last showing of it. And I think the reason for it was a live-action Wonder Woman film. This is awesome. Long time coming. But based on Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad, it wasn't that I had no expectations, it was that I just thought, okay, so this movie's going to be bad as well.
Yeah.
It's just what I'm used to, or a subpar movie.
Yeah.
Definitely surprised the crap out of me,
Yeah,
and this
me
is
too.
my favourite DCEU film, by far.
Definitely.
There's a lot of similarities between, say, this and Captain America the First Avenger. It's got a fun tone to it. Like, it's a lot brighter. There's more colours in this film than just
Yes.
like greys that they use in all the other ones. What would you praise especially about the film?
The tone is so much lighter. Everything so far has just been dark and gritty and not what you want from a comic book movie.
Yeah, it's not been successfully dark and gritty.
It was quite light-hearted despite the fact that it was World War.
The Themyscira stuff, like straight away we're sat, the movie starts, and like the archers on horseback, the... What word?
Choreography.
Thank you. That in this film was awesome. Like the hand-to-hand combat, and yeah, the gun battles, everything was just so cool.
It was
And that,
really well done.
yeah, and it was so apparent from so early on that I was like, holy shit, I might like this movie.
Yeah.
Obviously Steve Trevor comes down, she believes that Ares must be behind there still being war, and she feels like it's her destiny to take him out. And it's basically her journey into man's world and learning some pretty harsh lessons about...
Humanity.
Yeah.
But she still has faith in them at the end, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't.
We get the Ares twist. I don't feel it's a twist in as much as when they go, that guy's definitely Ares. No, that's definitely Ares. You're sat going, well, it's not then, is it?
Yeah.
And if it is, what a crappy
Yeah.
writing sort of thing to do. Yeah, I thought the twist was interesting.
Yeah, who they picked for the twist.
And the hints as well. I think he actually says at one point, like, oh, well, we all know the real war is fought in here, in this room, with men talking behind desks, rather than out there. He drops some line like that where
Right.
it's a big hint to him being like, oh yeah, I'm the one that's fucking pulling all these strings.
Yeah.
I liked the humour in it. The humour was amazing.
It was.
It's like I said to you, there's the ice cream thing from Justice League Origin, which comes across as horrible because it makes her so ditzy in the comic book. Whereas in this, it's not ditzy.
It was just refreshing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny, and I like her reactions. Little
Like
thing.
when she saw there was a baby, and then because it was like her first time seeing.
Oh
a baby.
yeah, she'd never seen a kid.
Yeah.
No, I like how she's that she's in her armor, and they're like, you can't dress like that, you stick out. And then they put her in this lovely suit, and she's still carrying
The
her sword and shield
shield.
around. And Gal Gadot's so right. We'll get this out of the way as well. She's so hot, and I didn't know this because in Batman vs Superman, I was like, she all right?
Yeah.
She okay?
Couldn't really see.
But in this movie, everyone's like, she's hot, and the more they point it out, the more I'm like, to be fair, she is really hot.
Yeah.
And she's a great Wonder Woman, and Chris Pine was such a good Steve Trevor.
He was so good. I was really impressed.
Because he was such a strong main character, but was never the main character. She
Yes.
always was at the forefront, which is really good. Whether in the trenches, and they're like, we've literally been stuck here for God knows
a
how
year or
long,
something.
and we've made no ground, and you get to see this horrible, shitty side of war, where actually, like, it's not all heroics and stuff,
Yeah.
and actually this is what war is, but like obviously it quickly turns into the big heroic thing. She
Yeah.
climbs over the wall,
Deflects
and
like
she's just
every bullet.
running through, and as soon as they realise that actually this is their chance, they all run, and that's one of those proper good moments in the film. Like
Yes.
the clock tower thing,
One
Well,
of my
there's-
favourite moments.
where she just leaps up with her shield and just blasts through it. Like, she's just a badass.
Yes.
Like, it's ridiculous. Do you know what's really weird? There isn't a lot that I would say are cons about this.
No.
There's only two things that play on my mind. One, the final battle was a little lackluster.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a big thing in a lot of superhero films. Is you can have a great film and a big last battle, but the big bad sometimes just isn't that great.
Isn't that big and bad? Yeah.
But he looked a lot better when he
when he
had
had
his
the armor and
armor.
everything.
But I thought he'd have it would be a different actor's face and stuff. I thought they'd get like a big guy, not just keep him,
Yeah.
because he looked weird inside this big armor, and
I didn't like the mustache.
some of the CG was very hit and miss with the final battle, but it was good.
Yeah.
It's kind of the only other thing. I don't know. Someone needs to comment and tell me that I'm wrong.
Okay.
Superman turns up in this universe, as we've seen from Batman vs Superman, the arrival of the Superman and Man of Steel, and it changes everything because there are super people, there are meta humans,
Yeah.
and yet there's this woman in World War One who has the strength to lift up tanks and do all of that, and yet they are shocked by Superman's strength. And I get Wonder Woman is a lot closer to us, like she doesn't have laser beams and whatnot, but they seem to put so much focus on Superman being the first meta, when realistically Wonder Woman was.
I guess it's because she did all that stuff in World War One. Have you ever listened to someone's war story and
yeah.
not believed a word they've said?
So you think it's
I think it's all everybody thinks.
Wonder Woman's a war story?
Yeah, is exaggeration.
Okay. I mean, the pacing of this film was great, and
Yes.
I liked all the actors, even the more minor characters. Like they do the similar thing to First Avenger. They get a ragtag group to go with them, and I thought they were all great.
Yeah, you learn to love them all, really.
Yeah, it had some connection because obviously she basically sits down at the start. Bruce Wayne finds the original photo for her that she was after anyway, and then it's almost like her looking at that photo. What you're seeing is all her memories. We actually see that photo get taken and whatnot.
Which is really cool.
It had connections, showed you what she's up to in present day, as well as showing you her origin and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting origin. I wasn't sat like, oh, an origin story. Like, even the little kid actress was
Yes.
really quite good. The accent things are odd in ways, but works.
I like that all the actresses on the mascara,
Yeah.
like they all had the same accent, as opposed to
And apparently,
Gal having
yeah.
one accent and then everybody else being American.
yeah, apparently that is because that's just Gal Gadot's accent.
Yeah, it is.
But like with the mascara, I'm a little bit like maybe they should have a slight twang, a slight accent.
Yeah,
Like
because it's supposed to be like a Greek
God, yeah.
place, so
Yeah, the mascara was fucking cool.
it was.
It's like when you see Asgard in Thor and you're like, I quite like seeing shit like this.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed it, and I can see it being a film that I would quite often just stick on, sit down and just watch, just
Yeah.
have a good time. It's a good popcorn.
It is. I've watched
Film.
it like 4 times now.
It wasn't just like good, it was great.
Yeah,
And
and
it-
especially for a DC film.
Yeah, kind of made me more excited now for the Justice League, because if this is the tone you're going for, then great. As far as what to expect from a sequel of Wonder Woman, yeah, just excited, because I feel like even if Justice League maybe lets me down a little bit or whatever, Wonder Woman, I think it's the same writers, the same staff are staying on it, in which
so you
and like
you'll be able to.
yeah, I'd still be excited to go back and hang out with Wonder Woman again in
Yes.
the sequel. Jumping over to Marvel now, and Spider-Man Homecoming for me was one of my most anticipated
same.
movies just because of the fact that Civil War, Spider-Man stole that movie for me. And after, 20 minutes, if that, of seeing Tom Holland as Spider-Man,
Yeah.
I was like, this is the best Spider-Man
Absolutely.
I've ever seen on screen for me. I couldn't wait for their movie. Some people would see it as maybe a bit of a dick move that Marvel was like, well, fuck, we've got to get a Spider-Man film out, and they pushed everyone else back. I don't think I could have waited 2-3 years to see Tom Holland's first outing as Spider-Man on his own.
Yeah, and they did it so well.
Coming out of the cinema when I first watched this film, I had no cons for it. We will get to those because it's one of those you're so caught up in like, it's fucking Spider-Man and this is the best thing ever. And then you sit, and when you really get a chance to not only reflect on a film but talk to other people about the film, there are bits where you're like, oh yeah, well that actually, now you mention it, is a bit irksome. The overall feel for me was I loved this movie.
Yeah, me too.
I love it because of how easily he folded into the MCU. You know, in Civil War, he'd been Spider-Man for 6 months?
Yeah.
So he's a fairly newer hero anyway. And obviously in this, he's doing the Stark internship, which is his cover for being Spider-Man. It did kind of fuck with the timeline. When we're introduced to Vulture at the start of the film, he's the guy that cleans up after the superheroes. But then Stark and the government bring in damage control. Vulture is actually one of the best villains in the MCU, I think, because his motivations were clear. He was the classic misunderstood, like, he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, no, he was just trying to support his family.
Yeah, but yeah, they fucked up the timeline in as much as it says 8 years later, after the Battle of New York, which I always thought took place in 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man definitely takes place in 2017. So basically the Avengers is just earlier than a lot of people thought it was.
Right, okay.
And whatnot. I've actually gone through and read, there are plenty of websites that have like the whole timeline of events, and it's crazy.
Wow.
Even folds in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Netflix
gosh.
shows and stuff. That all folds in nicely. The Battle of New York, the bad guy folds into that narrative. And I both love and hate the Tony Stark as his mentor thing.
How so?
Well, because obviously they also folded in that the little kid that Iron Man saves in Iron Man 2, that was Peter Parker. That's awesome that they've kind of retconned that.
Yes.
It explains why he looks up to Tony so much. But I love and I hate it because narratively it makes sense in the MCU. It gives him that connection into this world. I don't like that the Spider-Man suit, the proper one, is made by Tony and not Peter.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest cons for Spider-Man Homecoming, he's too tech heavy. Way too tech heavy. And I'm happy with the section of the film where actually he doesn't have the suit.
Yes.
Because it's just him and his web shooters, and he's just being Spider-Man. I don't like the whole, I've got a web for everything, and I've got an AI, and actually people have argued that, like, so like on the ship, he's the one that says, target the strongest structures. He thinks of it, but the suit can still do that. It's not Spider-Man to me. In the comics
in the comics, he'd be able to target all those things in his head.
Well, he'd have to.
Yeah, because the AI wouldn't be there.
Yeah, and I mean, newer Spider-Man, so current run of Amazing Spider-Man, he has Parker Industries, and he does have a web for everything, and he does have all this amazing tech. It's an older Peter Parker. That's not... Kid Peter Parker should stay more close to the
ground.
Yeah, literally, just stay on the ground, be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It's something I both love and hate, but narratively it definitely makes sense, so that's good.
I really enjoyed the AI in the suit.
Yeah?
Yeah, I thought it really added to the character, because a lot of the time Spider-Man is on his own.
One thing people said is, in the comic book, Spider-Man's always talking out loud and no one questions it. But in a film, the more a character is just talking to themselves, you're a bit like, what are you doing?
Are you crazy?
So yeah, it gives him someone to talk to.
Yes.
Also, I just think it's cool. So Jennifer Connelly voices the AI. She was in Ang Lee's Hulk as Betty Ross, but she's also Paul Bettany's wife. So you've got Jarvis and Karen are actually husband and wife in real life.
That's cool.
And people think she might become, what's her name, Jocasta, who's like a female Ultron, I believe, that they made that Hank Pym makes, but then she, like, there's different iterations, whatnot of her, but basically there's the chance that could happen.
That would be very cool.
Apparently, do you know why she's called Karen?
Why?
The reason I heard, and I don't believe it, but if it's true, it's cool as fuck.
Okay.
She is named after Plankton's wife, Karen, the computer in SpongeBob.
No way.
Which makes sense that Peter Parker, of all people, would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really hope that is true.
That would be cool. I like the Aunt May scenes. I like how weird and cringy she is. Like when they're eating food and she's like on about stuff being larby and whatnot. Yeah. You know, I thought Ned was just a great character for him to have as well. Like to actually Peter Parker with a nerdy friend, not just Peter Parker being really hard done by. Like Peter Parker's always had friends in some way, shape or form.
Yes. I also like that Peter Parker wasn't cool, because that hasn't happened in a movie in a while.
I like how Flash was... When I first saw Flash Thompson whatnot, I was like, well, that's not Flash.
Yeah.
But everyone was saying, in actual fact, a bully in school very rarely is some big jock guy who's going to beat you up. Usually it is somebody who will do verbal comments.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, Flash is an intellectual rival of Peter, because in actual fact, when you look, Flash is really crap at all of that stuff.
Yes.
He doesn't get questions and whatnot right, and that probably means he's more angry towards Peter for knowing everything. Michelle as a character, I loved her character. I loved that she draws people in distress when she's talking about what Peter's dropped out of, and they all look at her and she's like, I'm not a stalker, I'm just observant.
Yeah.
And
it was great.
But when she does the MJ reveal, part of me was like, no. I was like, it's not Michelle Jones, Mary Jane, blah. But now I'm in two frames of mind, because people said either it's a double bluff, and we will meet Mary Jane in a later film.
Right.
And this is just a, head fuck us. Or it just is a general new take on the character, and part of me's like...
I'd be really happy with that.
I like that character.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good character.
Yeah. And because Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane is really fucking irritating. I don't like her. So I actually prefer...
Speaking of, did you see her tweet about how her Spider-Man movies were the best ones?
She said they're the best and the only ones that matter.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
That's not true.
Yep.
But yeah, I really liked all the characters. I even liked the guy that runs all their clubs. He was in Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, and he said he wasn't going to lose a kid on a school trip.
Yeah, because it's perfect humour where he's like, I'd be devastated if we lost a kid. I can't lose a kid. And then there's that pause and he goes, not again. And you're just like, that's so, just so well done.
Yeah.
He was actually in he was in Incredible Hulk.
Yeah?
Yeah, but he was Amadeus Cho in that.
Oh,
he was
fair.
a cameo.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really adored the characters. I think, like with Vulture, the reason I think he's complex is because he's doing it for his family, and yes, he kills people, but in actual fact, he kills one guy accidentally.
Yeah,
because he thought it was the gravity gun. And with Peter, he keeps going, okay, just leave now, nothing has to happen. And he gives him 3 or 4 warnings before he's like, right, I might actually have to kill this kid.
Just to get rid of him,
Yeah, there's so much and so many moments, like when he's in the vault and you see him dicking around for ages, and then he's like, oh, so how long have you been in here? And she's like, oh, it's 27, 37 minutes. And he's like, what? And you're...
And the fact that he managed to learn the entire suits, everything the suit can do in that time. Yeah,
that's what I hadn't actually thought about.
Yeah, it does show his intellect.
Yeah, but we get a lot of ties to the universe. Obviously Tony's there, their relationship's interesting, because you can see Tony has grown so much over these movies, and you can see that he is looking at a mini version of himself. And when he says, "I want you to be better," you can believe that Tony really does want him to be better. I like that we get a proper look at the homemade suit, though, that he goes around in.
I really liked the homemade suit.
Yeah, but I like how some of the stuff that was funny, because it's quite tongue-in-cheek. It's like interrogation mode, where his voice basically is Batman's voice.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is stupid. And I love bits like that. Obviously Donald Glover is in it and basically confirms Miles Morales when he's like, I've got a nephew in Queens.
That's great.
I love in that scene as well where he's just like, oh, get me out of this, and he's like, it'll dissolve in 2 hours, and he's like, I've got ice cream in the car, and he's like, criminal, you're still a criminal. Because Tom Holland's not overly quippy, but he is just the right sense of humour. Like when he's running through the backyards and he's just commenting on everything, because that's what Spider-Man can't help but do.
Yes.
Is comment on everything.
Because if he made like every quip that he makes in the comics, it would just get annoying.
Yeah.
But he's got like the perfect amount.
Donald Glover's character as well, one of his AKAs is Prowler.
Yeah, and he was interested in the climbers.
Yeah. So, that's always cool as well. We got the two different Shockers, and I think Shocker's gauntlet was actually a variation on Crossbone's gauntlet that he uses in Civil War.
Oh.
So like all of this tech is coming from the battles the Avengers have had.
That's cool.
And I thought that was really cool. Vulture's design was so cool because I love how like instead of plumage, it's just the fur on his jacket.
Yeah, and it's like a proper, was it Airman's jacket?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
And the wings were cool because that you could see influences of like Falcon's wings combined with like
Stark Tech.
Yeah, and the turbines from Shield Tech and all this kind of stuff. Because I like how it was such just a clear storyline of they go to these battles, loot what they can, and sell weapons.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah.
Because they've got that one smart dude who can...
Yeah, the Tinkerer.
Yeah.
I like how... Yeah, we got a couple of villains, but you weren't like, whoa, there's a lot of villains in this movie.
Yeah, they're all very small time apart from Vulture.
Yeah, I liked how you have Tony Stark basically being like, stuff like this is underneath their pay grade, and Spider-Man's there like, well, fuck you, it's not underneath mine, like, I'm gonna go after him. Like, to Tony Stark, the FBI is enough to deal with a guy like Vulture.
Yeah.
There's so much in this movie that I love. Like, the Captain America videos that they use, I thought were hilarious. Especially, obviously, the final one.
The end one.
The end one, which is, in my opinion, still the best after credits thing.
Absolutely.
Because it's so self-aware and it is funny. And somebody put, when he goes, how many more of these do we have to do? I took that as like, he's on about the videos. But everyone was like, what if he means, how many more after fucking credits do we have to make? And I was like, that's quite a cool double meaning there. As a con, I didn't like the fact that Spider-Man throughout this whole film just gets his ass kicked. Even the final battle, he doesn't win.
Yeah.
It's Vulture's suit malfunctions. Tony does say, if Cap wanted to lay you out, he would have. But Spider-Man really holds his own against the majority of the Avengers and the big-time characters, and then robbers and muggers and stuff somehow give him a hard time. It's a really weird line that they've walked, where they've almost made him go backwards from being really capable to just, oh wait, but no, he's not that capable anymore because we want to show you more character growth over the movie.
Because like he took out Falcon and
Bucky, yeah. I loved all the high school stuff with Peter. Tiny little details like him doing sit-ups really well, and then when the teacher's like, oh, good job, he's like, oh fuck, and then just
he's got to
so
act like
down.
he's struggling.
We see him briefly at a high school party, and I like seeing more of the high school stuff and seeing Peter Parker and what he does. Yeah, it was nice to see Happy Hogan back as well. as he kind of babysits him. I love that little behind the scenes video, the first couple of minutes of the film, his reaction to everything that happens in Civil War.
Oh, the one thing that annoys you.
Oh yeah, the one thing that annoys me is the fact that in Civil War, when Giant Man is Giant Man, Peter says, "Holy shit," and we see him stood there, no sign of a camera or anything like that. That's his instant reaction. In Spider-Man Homecoming, we see him filming himself. Giant Man goes like that, and he goes, "What the hell, he's big now, I've got to go." Puts the camera down, and then we see him being hit across the screen. And there's little things like that where I'm like, why have that inconsistency?
You could have just watched that one section of Civil War.
My favourite moment of the whole film, and I'm not ashamed to say it, made me tear up quite a lot,
Okay.
is when he's under the rubble and like we see that awesome shot of him looking, and it's half the mask, half his face, and when he's like, "Come on, Spider-Man," and like lifts himself out, because like fuck me, there's proper acting chops by Tom Holland, because of the fact that like it's the pathetic it goes from like pathetic whimpering to like you really hear how scared he is.
Yeah.
Because he's like, "Fuck, I'm gonna die."
Yeah.
And it is in that moment he's no longer Spider-Man. He is a little kid that is stuck and like scared, and it really fucking hit me when I was in cinema, because I was like, "Fuck."
And then you get that growth.
And there's obviously Tony's work, because Tony's words playing in his head. If you're nothing without the suit, you don't deserve it. I have seen 3 or 4 reviews now where people say that was the time for just to hear Uncle Ben say, "With great power comes great responsibility,"
Yeah.
or something along those lines. But then everyone was like, "Meh," because this is another.
Tony is the father figure now. So.
Yeah, another thing I liked was how like Ned's on about does May know, and he's like, "With everything she's been through lately, I can't do that to her." We know what that is. That's Uncle Ben's death. And when he's like, so how'd you get your powers? And then he's like, "A spider bit me, Ned." And then Ned's banging on about the spider, and he's like, "It's dead anyway." And he's asking Peter about his powers. As long as you're paying attention, you get these little chunks about his origin without it being in your face.
So you get enough information to understand what's happening without being bored out of your mind.
Yeah. So I thought that was really good. Obviously the sequel feels partly set up, in as much as we got introduced to Scorpion. We got that cool after credits where he's like, I'm talking to Vulture, and he's like, "Apparently you know who he is." And Vulture's like, "No, if I knew that, he'd already be dead." It's nice that Vulture has that little bit of redemption, that he protects Peter. And it sets up that maybe we're going to see Scorpion. And I like how they're trying to do a little bit of what Amazing Spider-Man films did, where they were like, "Okay, let's do some fresh bad guys that haven't been on film yet. Let's not bore people with another Green Goblin," you know? So the only other thing off the top of my head I can think of that was quite exciting about the film is the fact that one of the biggest plot points is Avengers Tower's getting sold. People said it's either going to be the Daily Bugle or Oscorp Tower, but I want it to be the Baxter Building so badly, but I can't see that happening. And I like how by the end, obviously, all he's wanted is he's banging on about joining the Avengers, and then he realises that like actually there needs to be that middleman that looks after these kind of level threats, and that he's happy to do it. Got a glimpse at the Iron Spider suit, which he'll actually have in Infinity War.
Okay. Oh, does he?
He actually has it, yeah, and it's got the gold trim and whatnot.
Cool.
Yeah, and also I was shocked Gwyneth Paltrow obviously turns back up.
I know, right?
And I was like, "Holy shit, I thought you weren't in these films." And I just love how when Tony's on about, let's kill some time basically by I'll propose to you. And then when he's like, "Do you have the ring?" He's like, "Are you kidding me? I've been hanging on to this since 2008. And you're like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Liz character was okay.
Yeah, it didn't really
I've seen her in other things and preferred, like in the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, she starts off by being like, "Peter Parker's gross and I really don't like him," and then it's like she's quite ditzy and whatnot, but then she's kind of forced to spend time with him and warms up to him that way, which I think I prefer that kind of thing. Yeah, but and obviously he doesn't get with Liz, but that's good, because in the comics, Liz Allen was his like first love, and they didn't get together.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I know I'm obviously excited for the sequel to see more Spider-Man Rogues Gallery. Yeah, they essentially said that by the time the new Avengers team kind of rolls around, he'll be the Tony Stark. He'll be the one like helming it, which I think is really cool.
That's amazing.
Out of the two, I had less to complain about with Wonder Woman. So you'd think that would be the film I enjoyed more, but because of how long I have waited for Spider-Man Homecoming, and because it is what I've wanted out of a Spider-Man film for so long, it's the one that I preferred.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, as it helps the channel out. In the description you'll find all our social media links and little tidbits of competition news, all that good kind of stuff. We will see you in the next one.